Pose 316, Study Session 12. Introduction. One of the most important objectives of comparative methodologies as a course of study is to be able to adopt the knowledge acquired for comparative analysis of different countries and the numerous political and governmental systems that operated there. Therefore, Nigeria as a country and political system, but more importantly our place of residency and citizenship, should also be a major point of focus for students of comparative studies. Thus, this lecture is devoted to Nigeria. It is subdivided into four main sections: the parliamentary system, presidential system, civil administration, and military rule. Although there is no distinct section for the discussion of the adoption and practice of federalism in Nigeria, students should be informed that Nigeria has a federal political structure where three levels of government exist. These are namely the federal government, state government, and the local government. Learning outcomes. At the end of this lecture, it is expected that you will be able to understand the different systems of government that have been adopted by Nigeria since the 1914 amalgamation of the Northern and Southern Protectorates. Explain some derivable benefits from the different systems that were adopted at different points in time. Suggest the best system that could probably be adopted in the country. Presidential system of government. After the collapse of the First Republic in 1966, Nigeria was under military rule until 1979, when the presidential system of government was first introduced to usher in the country's Second Republic. The same presidential system was also adopted for the short-lived Third Republic and the current Fourth Republic, which has been on since 1999. Under the 1979 Constitution, Alhaji Shehu Shagari was elected as president in October 1979 and was in office after his re-election to December 1983, when his headship of the Second Republic was terminated in a military coup. Again, between 1991 and 1993, governors were elected on the basis of a presidential system. But the results of the election, which should have made Chief M.K. Abiola the second executive president, were annulled. The Third Republic ended with the stepping aside of General Babangida in August 1993, and more profoundly, with the coming to power of General Abacha in November of the same year. Nigeria returned to civil rule again under the presidential system in 1999, and since then, the Fourth Republic has been ongoing. Chief Olusegun Obasanjo became Nigeria's second executive president and was in office from May 1999 to May 2007. He was succeeded by Alhaji Umaru Yar'Adua, who was in office from 2007 till he died before the expiration of his first term in May 2010. President Goodluck Jonathan completed the term of Yar'Adua and was re-elected for another 4-year term, which began in May 2011. Under Nigeria's presidential system, the executive arm at the federal level is headed by the president, while the legislative arm, that is the National Assembly, has the Senate President and Speaker as the heads of the Senate and House of Representatives respectively. There are 109 senators consisting of 3 members from each of 36 states and 1 senator representing the Federal Capital Territory, FCT. For the House of Representatives, there are 360 members without any member specifically representing the FCT. At the state level, the governor heads the executive arm, while the speaker is the head of the parliament, otherwise known as the State House of Assembly. Furthermore, the local government, which is the third level of government in Nigeria, has a chairman at the top of the executive arm, while the Legislative Council also has a speaker. Some other important aspects of the 1999 Presidential Constitution that is still in operation in Nigeria include: 1. The giving of franchise to all qualified adults of 18 years and above. 2. The possibility of removing the president or the governor, as the case may be, through impeachment if he is found guilty of an impeachable offense, such as violation of any part of the Constitution or any other gross misconduct. 3. The protection of the president or governor under the immunity clause against any civil litigation while he is still in office. 4. The Chief Justice as the head of the Supreme Court, who is appointed by the President, subject to confirmation by a simple majority of the Senate. The appointment of other judges of the Supreme Court is done by the President on the advice of the Federal Judicial Service Commission, subject to approval of a simple majority of the Senate. 5. The appointment of Chief Judge and judges of the Federal High Court or the President of the Federal Court of Appeal is done by the President on the advice of the Federal Judicial Service Commission, subject to the approval of a simple majority of the Senate. 6. The Chief Justice and other federal judges could only be removed by 2/3 majority of the Senate. 7. At the state level, the governor appoints the Chief Judge and other judges of the State High Court in conformity to the advice of the National Judicial Commission and support of the Senate House of Assembly. 8. Both at the federal and state levels, the promotion or appointment of any of the judges could only be effected by the President or Governor upon the advice of the National Judicial Commission. 9. The President is both the head of state and head of government, as well as the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces. And lastly, the President has the right to appoint his cabinet ministers from within his political party or outside, just as the state governor could appoint his commissioners from anywhere within or outside the ruling party. Other fundamental features in the Constitution include the recognition for the establishment of certain commissions, councils, and agencies. These include Council of State, Federal Civil Service Commission, Federal Electoral Commission, National Defense Council, Federal Judicial Service Commission, National Economic Council, National Population Commission, National Security Council, Police Service Commission. There are similar others like the State Civil Service Commission and the State Independent Electoral Commission at the state levels. For the purpose of comparison, and in line with one of our objectives at the beginning of this section, we may now examine some of the merits and demerits of the presidential system of government and possibly recommend it or the parliamentary system for Nigeria. First, the merits. 1. It promotes stability in government and removes any ambiguity over the location of the executive power of government. This is unlike under the parliamentary system, where there is the president and the prime minister, and therefore possibility of conflict of roles. 2. It emphasizes on the principle of separation of powers, gives room for effective checks and balances, unlike in the parliamentary system, which fuses the role of the parliamentarians and cabinet ministers. 3. The president, through his power to appoint his ministers, and the governor, that is his commissioners, from any suitable place, has the opportunity of selecting the best hand and brain for his cabinet, regardless of party affiliation. 4. Responsibility is easily located in particular persons in a presidential system of government. Now the demerits. 1. It has been argued that because the president can appoint his ministers from anywhere, he may abuse this power by making his close associates, who may be incompetent, his ministers, whereas in the parliamentary system, representatives of the people who were probably elected because of their competence are also the ministers. 2. The president can also become autocratic if no effective check is imposed on his power. 3. As experience has so far shown in Nigeria, if the president is unable to secure majority support for any of his programs, he may have to take to lobbying. Meanwhile, unlike in the advanced countries such as the USA, United Kingdom, and Germany, among others, where lobbying is essentially about consensus and compromise, money for bribery and corruption, as well as corruptive tendencies, are often introduced into lobbying in Nigeria. It should also be noted that even in the countries where lobbying is relatively cleaner and devoid of monetary or material inducement, it often leads to the abandonment of some lofty programs by the president, because lobbying generally involves give and take. Study session summary. The lecture essentially focused on the presidential system of government, which Nigeria practiced in its Second Republic between 1979 and 1983, abortive Third Republic between 1992 and 1993, and the Fourth Republic from 1999 till date. Alhaji Shehu Shagari emerged as the country's first executive president in 1979, while in view of Chief MK Abiola's annulled presidential election results in 1993, Chief Olusegun Obasanjo, whose administration was first inaugurated in 1999 and later in 2003, became the second executive president. President Umar Yar'Adua, who died in 2010, and Goodluck Jonathan, respectively succeeded Obasanjo. The lecture also discussed some peculiarities of the current presidential system in Nigeria, which include the combination of the offices of the head of state and head of government, the immunity clause for the president and governor against civil litigations while still in office, and the existence of two separate arms of the National Assembly. End of study session 12. Thank you for listening.